I would say a second core tenet of a model of transformative education is having a mentorship based model. So what does that look like? I mentioned in my story before having great teachers, but not necessarily having a guide who pointed me back towards myself. And this mentorship based model, if education is about self actualization, then we need real mentors to support whole humans in their development. We call at the Whole Life Learning Center, we call the educators there, the adults, our mentors. That's because they're not just teachers teaching subjects and developing specific aptitudes in the learners there. They are mentors working, helping kids develop physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually, and helping them discover those unique gifts and help them navigate their own path in the world.
Yeah, so it's that relationship between the adult, the teacher, the guide, the mentor, and the student is key. It's like a relationship of like trust and
Yes.
mutual respect. I would not say that my teachers in the traditional school system ever thought that was their goal, for me to respect them, or they wanted me to respect them by like obeying them.
Respect their
But they were
authority.
perfectly fine for me to fear them, or, like they didn't need me to love them or have intimate. It was no intimacy, right? It was like you show up, you do your thing. If I don't notice you, you're doing it well. Like basically the one
Mhm.
who gets attention is either sucking up or disrupting and
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
get
It
by.
wasn't necessarily the goal for you to feel cared for and really seen in that classroom and it's not necessarily their fault, right? Because they're in a system that is judging them and evaluating them by the numbers, the performance of their pupils. And so they're in that system. And we should also say that there are, in that traditional model of education, there are plenty of inspired educators working to do great things who really do care for their students and are helping them develop, helping them know themselves. I really trust that there are educators and administrators throughout, different schools and traditional models that are working to do that. But it comes back to that. It's like a stick in a river,
Yeah.
they're, hopefully they're able to reach this, a few students, but we're not setting up we're not, we don't have a mentorship model. So when I was looking for the kind of school that I wanted to work at, that's what I was looking for. I wanted to be a mentor and I wanted to work with kids and really help them develop body, mind, heart, and spirit. And when I couldn't find that, as when my wife Caroline and I set to work to creating the Whole Life Learning Center. And to reflect what you said earlier, around really being based on relationship and trust and care. Some of my mentors, Ba and Josette Lovemore, who've done great things out of the Pacific Northwest, got to work with them. They developed a program called Natural Learning Relationships. And they really make the point that learning doesn't happen except through relationship. Relationship is the conduit for learning and growth, and the quality of our relationships, meaning care and trust in those relationships, determines the quality of our learning. So we really have to be, as mentors, we have to model that emotional intelligence, that care, that growth mindset for our learners to really soak it up. I mean,
Mhm.
think about the things that you might have learned through your education. We don't necessarily remember facts from 10th grade history or whatever it was, 7th grade literature or college biology. But we do remember that teacher who was so alive and so loved what they were doing that it was contagious. I think it was Fred Rogers who said that great teachers are really just people who love what they're doing so much that they are there to share it. So that piece, we remember the folks who were lit up and that they're modeling that kind of love of learning and of developing and sharing those gifts.
I also remember the ones who were deeply suffering and caused all of us
Those
to
two.
suffer. Like, I remember the trauma. So, yes, you remember how it
Same.
felt more than what the content was. And
Exactly.
the teachers that are working really hard, I think a lot of teachers go into it with that idea of being this support for kids, being this guide. And if they're able to do it, they do it despite the system, under-resourced, not enough time, not a system focused on it. So how do you create a system that encourages this that allows for the teachers to be mentors and guides like that?
Well, first of all, we have to get rid of this idea that their kids are in some kind of competition, and that these standards, that we're evaluating them based on all of these metrics and standards. We have to set them free to really bring their curriculum to life, to really meet each student where they're at. And from there, we're looking at growth. We're looking at everyone being challenged, everyone being seen and supported. How do we set our mentors up for success in working with kids in a model like this, a mentorship based model? First, we need to set them free as educators to bring the curriculum to life. We have a curriculum guide at the Whole Life Learning Center that has those, I mentioned, weekly themes and quotes of the week. We've got all of in every subject matter, we've got different monthly topics and quarterly themes even, and things that carry us through the year and things that we're exploring and covering, whether that be in science or art or literacy. But I describe that curriculum guide to our mentors like a coloring book, and they get to bring their box of crayons, or maybe they want to bring markers, and they get to fill out that curriculum guide and bring their own inspirations to it. Maybe they have a certain passion in science, and that's naturally going to be reflected in the way that they develop. Maybe they have a passion for poetry, and that starts to come through in their lessons and things like that. They have to be able to be set free to bring that, because then they're modeling that lifelong learning. So second, they should be allowed to color outside the lines, right? This isn't the traditional model of curriculum delivery and then testing for memorization and regurgitation. This is about working with whole life learners, with inspiring lifelong learners. So we need to model that. And that might change with current events. That might change with something that happens with, maybe it's a loss within our community, or something that's going on in our neighborhood, something environmentally where we can get out there and make a difference. The educators need to be free to say, you know what, I'm going to pivot. And this is really what's up right now in our class and our community. So we're going to spend some time talking about what solutions might be, and then working towards those.
Mm-hmm. And so practically, it seems like there's like a lower teacher to student ratio seems important here, to have some some time and energy to connect, to feel there. So I know that you have 2 teachers in the classrooms.
We
So
do.
yeah, it's like like a kind of a roughly 1 to 10 is your
Exactly.
max. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Which
do team teaching. So like
mhm.
a lead mentor or a sometimes co-lead mentors, or a lead mentor and a support mentor. Sometimes those support mentors support with that specialization, having a specialty class in one of our electives, art, music, Spanish, eco studies. We've got movement classes, things like that. But also, one of the ways that we really take time for mentorship is through the whole life learning curriculum. We have things like activities like vision boards, where we're mapping out what kind of life do I want to have? What kind of world do I want to help to create? And what does that look like? What are the images and the vision that I want to see on front of my binder every day when I show up to school? We do heart maps, where we're mapping out those inspirations and putting down all the things that we love, from our friends and family and community to our hobbies and our goals and aspirations, and just getting that organized. And that offers so much insight for those mentors to see those vision boards and heart maps. And when someone's feeling stuck or feeling like the learning isn't relevant for them, they don't get it, I can always look back at that heart map and say, well, what if we, I see Legos all over that. What if we tried to model this out, this scientific concept? What if we could do that with Legos? And all of a sudden it's like, ding, they light up, and we've got an inroad. We can go from there. And from that, we develop personal, like whole life learning plans, personal learning plans that honor body, mind, heart, and spirit, that teach them how to really set goals and envision steps to achieve those goals, find people to support them, and work towards those goals and accomplish the things they set their minds to.
Yeah, I was getting Della's feedback on her teachers for the upcoming teacher parent conference. And she said her favorite thing about her teacher is how she understands how to be with her in her feelings. That was her favorite.
Mm.
She knows how to be with me when I'm upset, when I have my feelings. And the other teacher, I asked her for everything about him, and she's like, I like it when he raps. So it just was like two very different things, but like very them, like knowing the two of them. Like, and he also said that he's a lot like me. And I was like, oh, and like what? He has great hair or what? And she's like, no, he's just like, he raps and he's like fun and nice and like he's just like cool dad, and
That's huge.
that was the vibe she got from her two teachers, which is just so different than what I had. And I know you said you set out to be a mentor yourself. You don't teach. You probably haven't been in the classroom as a teacher in a long, long time. So it also seems like teaching the teachers to be mentors of their students or allowing them to be also is the way their bosses show up, that you're mentoring them. You're not trying to control them. You're not holding them to a uniform standard. They're not part of that system, that traditional education. It's, everybody's controlling everybody, from the state legislatures to the administrators to the teachers to the students bullying each other, controlling each other. And like there's this system of control that you seem to have broken out of.
Yeah, there's a lot of oppression in that system. And yeah, I get to be the mentor for the mentors now. And, and every once in a while kind of slide in there. And I love getting to connect with the kids, and like that young learner I mentioned before, you get to help them maybe work through a challenge. But our mentors as well, through the training and professional development that we do our vision boards and our heart maps. We create our own learning plans and support each other with accountability around those things. So that's really important as well. It's we have a plan, and we have, just like when I have, as an educator, I have a lesson plan. I want to have a plan, and also have the freedom to throw it out the window when what's really alive in the group right now is something else. And I think that's huge. And I love that feedback that Della gave you, that, well, my mentor really knows how to be with me when I'm having big feelings. Because in that larger traditional system of implied oppression, there's not time for that. When you have one teacher in a group of, 20 to 30 students, I don't have time to address that this child is upset right now. I need to move on with the lesson because I need to get through this lesson for my performance review. We need to cover this stuff, and because it's going to be on the test. Where at the Whole Life Learning Center, or at a model that is truly relationship based, I can lean in and take the time. And we've got the ratios to say, hey, will you be with the group? I'm going to go check in with my friend over here. And I find out that, maybe this child lost their cat over the weekend. Well, guess what? She's not going to be in a place to learn. She needs to be held in that grief, and she needs to learn that that's important to be honored and to be felt and to understand. And maybe then there can be an opportunity for some kind of, small ceremony that we could have up in the gardens, and, and write messages to the cat, or work out something with the parents, and other kids could be witness to that. And that helps them with their own grief. And so those kinds of things can open doors to all sorts of learning that it might not have been on the planned path, but because we as educators have that ability to pivot, it can bring so much richness and support. And again, that is foundational to that academic and intellectual growth. Because the human brain will not be primed to take in and integrate new information. And this is just neuroscience. If it is in a place of grief, if it's in a place of stress, it's not primed to learn. So there's no point in giving a lesson.
The nervous system is always learning, though. So the nervous system is in a great place to be wired to accept grief, to embrace emotion. You even said like encourage other kids to be in that with them, to create a ritual or ceremony. And otherwise my nervous system learned to shut it down, to be unsafe with those feelings, because I was forced to try to get back to my brain to learn facts. And so, when we talk about holistic, it's like she wasn't in a place to learn facts for their brain, but she was very much in a place to learn experientially how to grieve, and how powerful is that?